Hello and welcome to take 3 of episode 16 of the Cage Fight podcast. We've had we had to restart a few times, but luckily didn't get too far.
Yeah, and it was not because of Dave, who's doing great.
Yeah, there we go. Dave
Hey, thanks.
is doing great at doing a shitty job.
I'm muting your mic.
Oh no!
Okay. Oh, he did it. He done and did it. So it's just me today.
I have the power here, motherfucker.
All right, I can. Oh, okay, I can hear myself again.
Oh, okay. It's just. I'll do the thing. You got the thing.
Okay. Well, today we are talking about 8mm, a movie from 1999, and Ghost Rider 2: Spirit of Vengeance. And actually, I don't think the 2 is in the title. It's just Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. But it is the sequel to 2007's Ghost Rider that happened to come out like 4 years later. Now, these two movies are movies.
They were filmed.
Yeah.
There are actors, directors, producers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe costume designers. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Possibly some extras.
Yeah, probably like one guy with one mic.
Yeah, there was a sound guy. He walked around with a boom, and
Yeah.
not even like a boom mic. He walked around with like a piece of dynamite that said
Yeah.
boom on it.
He was a Looney Tunes character, and he was picking up all the sound for the movies.
Yeah, and he did all of the dialogue in ADR and post personally for both movies.
Pretty damn good job, I gotta say.
And his name was Wile E. Coyote. But yeah, so those two movies. Forgive me if I don't have a lot to pre-roll with here, because I kind of used a lot of that on the first 2 days.
Yeah, we're pretty spent already, so let's just we'll roll with it.
Let's do it, baby. Okay, so the first movie we're going to talk about is 8mm.
8mm, known to some as 8 M&Ms, but that is actually not the way you're supposed to say it.
Oh yeah, it's true. Oh, thing I should mention: we don't have a third today. It's just Mike and I am Nick, maybe.
And I'm Mike, and we have agreed to have nothing but the same opinions today.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Just in case. But even in worst case scenario, we have Dave, who didn't watch either of these movies, ready to break the tie. So,
Hey, I'm taking notes again, though.
yeah, it's true. And those notes will probably help in his decision if it is necessary.
Yeah, we'll check those notes later to see how useful they'll be.
Verify their accuracy.
Well, I'll be able to draw a conclusion off of those.
You do that, buddy boy.
Hey,
Do
more
I need to
power
mute
to
your
you.
mic again?
No. I'm being positive about Dave.
Say something nice.
What's one nice thing you could say about Dave?
Oh, about Dave? He just said say something nice.
I'm
about
trying
Dave.
to help a little bit so neither of us gets muted.
Dave records our podcast, and for that I'm grateful. He acts as the engineer.
As mediator, that does qualify as nice.
Yeah.
He said he was thankful. And I will just pitch in that Dave used to smell like piss and shit, and now he doesn't. He just smells like piss. So
There
that
we go.
is
That's seriously moving in the right direction.
yeah. I mean, and I think he could knock the other one down, and maybe he'll smell like boogers when that goes away. I don't know. We'll find out.
We don't know what the
How
don't
do
know what the
boogers
piss is coming
smell?
up.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're in my nose, but I never smell them.
That's true. But when you're drenched in them, they're smellable.
If a booger smells in the woods and no one is around to smell it, we'll cut that.
This is good content. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, dude, I'll mute you, dude.
Okay, thanks. So 8mm. This movie came out in the year 99 and is rated R, which I didn't look up the movie beforehand to see what the rating was, but it became very clear over the course of the movie what this was definitely rated.
Yeah.
It was either R or NC-17. If it is NC-17, I apologize, but I don't think an NC-17 would have made this much at the box office.
Yeah, and if it was NC-17, there would have been a little bit more like fisting instead of just talking about fisting. So.
And directed by Joel Schumacher, who you probably remember from Batman and Robin and like that Phantom of the Opera movie with fucking Gerard
Butler.
I was going to say
Depardieu.
Gerard Way, but that is way more accurate. Gerard Way and Phantom of the Opera. Can we get that going?
That would be great, actually. I would watch that.
I would too. But we remember Joel Schumacher from... he did Trespass with Nicolas Cage
Yes.
also, which we just did, what was that, 2-3 episodes ago?
Yeah,
Something
that was fairly recently.
Hmm.
Joel Schumacher, or as he's known to his close friends such as us, Joey Shoes.
Yeah, Joey Shoes. He's always got those shoes on too. The shoes isn't related to his last name, actually.
It's not.
It's
He's
about
just-
he's a total sneakerhead.
He fucking, hey, if he's not talking about shoes, he is making a movie.
Yeah.
And if he's not making a movie about shoes, then,
Then he's making 8mm.
and that's what he did in the year 1999.
Yeah. So this one was produced by Global Entertainment Productions and distributed by Columbia Pictures, but you wouldn't even know about the Global Entertainment because Columbia gets the whole logo.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you know?
Global Entertainment also sounds fake.
Yeah, it does.
So it might be a money laundering situation.
I bet
don't
it's
know.
a scheme by the globalist enterprise to topple our right to be Americans.
That's got to be what it is. I did get some very strong patriot vibes from this movie.
Well, I think you should have gotten anti-patriot vibes because this is globalist agenda. No. Runtime of 124 minutes, so about 2 hours. It had a budget of $40 million and a box office gross of $96.6 million, making this another one in the black, finally.
We're back in black, baby.
It's been, I don't know how many episodes since we actually had one that was in the black, and this is kind of insane. But, so I think that brings our total to 8 movies out of 23 thus far. And that's not including the one that's next in this podcast. I'll talk about that when it comes there. But yeah, so that's a solid 1/3 of his movies have made as much money as they cost to make.
Oh boy. What a statistic.
Yeah, seriously. I'm sure that'll change as we get to round 2. But
Yeah,
one
we're
thing
getting closer.
So Rotten Tomatoes, 22% for the critic score, 52% for audience rating. So out of your average Joes here, about 1 out of every 2 people liked this movie, but them critics are just fucking 1 in 5. That's some bogus
narcs.
bullshit.
Total narcs.
Total narcs. Fuck them.
They probably wanted there to be more pedophilia or something.
Yeah, seriously.
Knowing
Like there
these
wasn't enough.
Critics.
Yeah, fucking Bryan Singer's the lot of them. They weren't even satisfied with the weird, scummy porn bazaars that had child porn in them that appeared in this film. But,
Lord, I was born an emblem man.
oh, God.
Oh my God, that is that's a parody that's too hot for Weird Al.
Too hot for Weird Al. Imagine the late night ads we could run. Well, I'd
Can we start calling pedos namblers?
like, yes, I think so. I think we can. Well, it depends. What?
On that side of the fence, at least.
Yeah, on that side of the fence. Yep.
I don't know, Dave. Is it okay if we call you that?
Hi.
Mute time.
No, but
So yeah, some trivia facts about this movie. I think
Yeah.
one gentleman here has the webpage open.
yeah, I got the freaking IMDb. And I'm skipping over the boring shit. Who cares? Nicolas Cage's Oscar award that he won for Leaving Las Vegas makes a cameo in this movie.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, it's wrapped in black string and laces on James Gandolfini's desk when he breaks into to tap his phone.
I didn't
Notice that. David Fincher was the original director choice, and not to shit on our old pal Joey Shoes, but David Fincher makes a good picture.
Yeah.
And I feel like he would have been interesting in this movie.
Yeah, I think Fincher actually could have made this really taken it to the next level. Maybe. Sorry,
Yeah.
Joey Shoes, but like, you are kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Batman and Robin for all its flaws. Like literally, I love it because of its flaws. But
I agree. It's not a well remembered movie, but I am very fond of it.
But yeah, I don't know. David Fincher has made some good stuff before. I mean, he did Fight Club, right?
He did the Fight Club. He did the Seven. He did the well, this has been retconned from his career, but he did Alien 3.
Oh yes, I was gonna say I believe he did Alien 3 too, but
and Panic
which
Room.
not as bad
Good
as people remember. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's certainly a letdown given the first 2 Alien movies.
Yeah.
But I would take it over Alien Resurrection personally. But
I disagree.
Mhm.
But I will say that the last time I watched Alien 3, it was the director's cut, and that's not the version I needed to watch. It was, so maybe that affected my decision there.
yeah, director's cut's also a hit or miss thing. Sometimes there's a reason the director had some of his shit cut.
Yeah, and also if the director hates the movie, maybe the director's cut doesn't need to be
Isn't
seen.
gonna help it.
Yeah. So what else we got? Mark Wahlberg was he turned down the role of Max California, Joaquin Phoenix's character.
Oh.
That certainly would have been interesting. He's some kind of pervert. But
Probably a racist kind.
but yeah, well, that's been proven. So, this is fun to read. The enema porno film seen at the porn swap meet is a genuine S&M film that was heavily edited for inclusion in this movie. And you know what? Why?
Why did they edit it? Probably to avoid the NC-17 rating. But,
yeah, that's true. Or they just didn't want to pay the enema director.
But given everything else they showed in this movie, oh yeah, they did probably have to pay the enema director. Maybe they can negotiate it down. I don't know how all this lawyering works. I'm one of those, average Joes who just watches movies for a living.
That's how you actually make money as a poop porn director. You make the poop porn, you hope it makes a couple bucks. It probably won't make that much. But then when some Joey schmuck comes along and puts it in his movie, that's when you get your payout.
Yeah.
Here's a fun story. Russell Crowe agreed to do the film with Joey Shoes. And Crowe added a stipulation that the scene where he sees the kiddie porn, he wanted to throw it in the trash and light a cigarette and set the trash can on fire.
Oh.
Maybe it sounds like he might be overcompensating a little bit, but
I don't know. We've got to look in. Was Russell Crowe any photos of him with Jeffrey Epstein?
He's a Lolita Express patron. I don't know. We'll look into that. That might be worth looking into. And so Joel Schumacher agreed to that, but then basically Nicolas Cage's agent called him and he was like, "What if I just took him instead?" And so. I take this to mean that...
I believe that's a good thing, because otherwise I wouldn't have ever seen this movie.
That's true. I mean, until our Russell Crowe podcast comes up.
Coming 2021.
I just can't wait to talk about his role as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the Mummy reboot.
Shit. I didn't see that.
Oof.
I can't wait.
What else we got here? Director Joel Schumacher says he is still proud of this film 2 decades later, though everybody who paid to allow this movie to be made hated it.
Oh, yeah.
The studios didn't like it. And maybe it's because the film's original title was Sexy World.
Yeah, and they were looking for something a little more sexy and worldly.
This is maybe one of the most interesting trivia facts I've seen on IMDb because... first of all, Sexy World, strange name for a movie. Second of all, not how I would describe this particular movie.
If anything, this movie kind of turned me off. I'm not into BDSM. I'm really not into snuff.
Not into snuff, not into enemas or kids. So really, it wasn't a very sexy world for me to be in at the time.
Yeah.
But hey, if you're into poop and kids, that's okay.
Yeah. That's the kids is not okay.
No. It's just a fetish.
Sounded like a Nambler.
Oh God.
We are endorsing. You know what? I'm not going to keep going. So Bruce Willis turned down the leading role. So this could have been Bruce Willis and fucking Mark Wahlberg exploring the seedy underbelly of the illegal porn world. It was so close to being that, but it wasn't.
I think I could see Bruce Willis more than I could Mark Wahlberg, at least in that role. You know what I can't.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg is just fucking Mark Wahlberg. He can't be anything else. You know what I
Right.
mean? He's Marky Mark to the bone.
Yeah, and I don't know if they've ever tried to get him to be something else, or if they're just like, hey, you're endearing to some, just be you.
Yeah.
Hey, Nicolas Cage, you looking for this freaking porn over here? I can't do a Boston thing, but you get it, right?
Yeah, I get it. I got it.
I'm running out of interesting.
Well, this one actually has interesting fun facts about it, unlike most of the last couple movies we've reviewed, like fucking like 211, which had what, like no facts.
No facts and nothing to be said about the movie. This will answer our question about the NC-17 rating. So spoiler, there's a part where Nicolas Cage pistol whips the shit out of somebody, and they didn't show that specifically to avoid the NC-17.
Oh, okay.
So if they had shown brains getting bashed, that would have been the line.
Interesting.
And yeah, basically all the other fun facts relate to the fact that Sony was having a hard time maintaining a director for this movie, and Joel Schumacher said, "Fuck it, let's go."
Let's do.
So-
It. I'll take whatever work comes across my desk.
Yeah, and this is just one more fun fact that I am reading verbatim. The film explores the dark side of pornography, which is not so much trivia as it is a one-sentence summarization of the movie. So,
True.
I think we can move forward.
It's true. Well, that's our plot summary.
That's it.
But yeah, moving into a plot summary, I got quite a few notes here because
That's what I like to hear.
So Cage is returning from some meeting in Miami he had, and he seems to be working as a private investigator. And he returns to his wife and infant daughter, and you know there's much love in this family, as we are shown periodically. They say "I love you" probably 3 times in the first 5 minutes. He hugs his baby, and he's like, "Oh, look at you, little baby Cinderella," because he named his daughter Cinderella. Little weird, I guess, but I don't know.
And that's how he was just doing a little bit of ass kissing so he could fund National Treasure a few years later.
But yeah, but he's also keeping secrets. As a private investigator, he doesn't want his wife to know about the things he's involved with. He says it's better that way, and he tells her that directly, so it's not. But also, for some reason, at the beginning, he's lying about smoking, and I don't know what significance that really holds, but you keep seeing him smoking, and then him saying to his wife, "I'm not smoking, I'm not," which...
And she'll be like, "You smell like cigarettes, and you have 10 cigarette butts in your hair." And he's like, "They're not mine."
Yeah, I swear. But also, so Cage then gets contracted as a private investigator by an old woman who is a widow now, and she found something in her dead husband's safe, and it's a snuff film, or it appears to be, and it's on 8mm film, hence the title.
Yes, and they also reassure you that snuff films don't exist.
Yeah.
That's part of the premise is that snuff films are urban legend.
Yeah, they ain't real.
Yeah.
But all you have to do is look at a police body cam.
Oh, that's
Because
true.
They kill people.
They
ACAB.
they're murderous. Yep.
Yeah. But she wants Cage to prove, like, she's like, "Please, like, tell me this isn't a real snuff film. I want you to show that it's not. I don't want my husband's reputation to be damaged." So
Even though he's dead, so who gives a fuck?
yeah,
Right?
seriously. But Cage watches it, and there's like a guy in a bondage mask and like just general bondage gear, and he just like beats and stabs this young woman to death. And that's the whole thing. There's no sex in this snuff film that is porn. It is just death. That's it.
Although they when they describe it before he watches it, they say it starts out like typical smut, which not real. I mean, there's a guy in a gimp mask and a scantily clad woman, but other than that, it's not very smutty. It's just like filmed in a dirty basement.
Yeah, it's really there. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot of smut about it, besides the guy in the gimp mask, who it could have been a ski mask for all it matters. He's just fucking killing a woman, and I don't know who gets off to this, but apparently it's a large market for it. I don't know, but So he says he can't tell if it's real, but it certainly looks very real, and suggests that they go to the police. But the widow is like, please, no, I need you to do it. I can't let this out to the public. I can't ruin my husband's reputation, because her husband is a very wealthy man. They live in like a...
It's
you know,
essentially
ridiculous...
Wayne Manor.
Oh, yeah. It looks like it. I believe her husband was Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
And he just got shot in an alley by Joe Chill, and their son is off doing some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, the son is off. He's looking for his dad's murder porn, I think.
But so Cage then goes home and he packs up to investigate, brings his gun with him. His wife is like, why are you bringing a gun? And he's like, it's a precaution. I won't need it. I won't need it. But he will. Spoilers. Also, fun fact, it's a Walther PPK, it looks like. For gun geeks out there. That's the James Bond gun.
The James Bond one.
Mm-hmm. So he begins looking into the film in general in Cleveland. I don't know why he ends up in Cleveland, but does.
If I saw a film like this and I wanted to find out where it got made, Cleveland would be the first place I would look.
It's a good place to check. The train's taking jobs away from Cleveland. If anyone remembers what that's from, props to you. But he notices that the guy in the film has like a satanic star tattoo on his right hand. Yeah, between his thumb and his index finger. And that's the guy murdering the person. And so he looks into it. He does a bunch of investigating, works with the police department and shit, which I didn't know private investigators could get access to police information. I had no idea. If that's the case, interesting.
Yeah, but wasn't very hard for him to just get in and start looking at records of lost children.
Yeah. But he determines that the film stock was discontinued in 1992, the film that it's on, so it has to be someone who disappeared right around then, and he matches up the photo with someone named Mary Ann Matthews, who went missing in 93. So he goes and he talks to Mary's mother, Janet. And it turns out, like, Mary was having a rough home life. Mary Ann, who is the person who's missing, and she hated her stepdad, and she didn't have a good time at home, and her mom hit her once, and then the next day she was gone. And Janet never saw her daughter again, reported her missing to the police. So Cage is like, can I look around? Looks around her house, and he finds a hidden notebook in a toilet tank. And in it, it's Mary's diary, and it says she's running off with her boyfriend in town named Warren, and they're going to go to Hollywood, and she wants to become a movie star.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely hidden so well that her mom wouldn't have found it in the years since she's been missing.
She never, in 6 years, never had a single problem with the toilet where she had to lift the tank up and look at it.
Yes, and best of all, the notebook was still in good enough condition to read. So,
yeah, despite the fact that water will leak through a Ziploc bag that it was sealed in.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can just thank God for that.
So, Cage then looks into Warren Anderson, who is the person that she was who Mary Ann was dating. Warren Anderson is locked up for breaking and entering in a prison here in Pennsylvania. Talks to him. It turns out that they moved out to L.A., and then he almost immediately broke up with her. And he says some very disparaging comments about her, saying, oh, that bitch, and then talking about how fucking, she said she was going to go work in a titty bar, even though her titties were shitty.
Yeah, and her ex was played by a young Norman Reedus.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was him or not, but yeah, he's so much younger than what I'm used to seeing him,
yeah.
And his voice was like way higher, so I was like tripped up, but I was like, that's gotta be Norman Reedus. But
he definitely looks greasy.
He looks very greasy. But after that information, he goes over to Janet, Mary Ann's mother, and says like, hey, if I found out what happened to her and it was really bad, if she was dead, would you want to know that? Or would you rather just not know and just believe that she's,
living in California.
Living in California, living the good life.
Yeah.
And then the mother says, like, I'd rather know. I have to know. So then he's like, okay. And he leaves. He goes to L.A. And he goes to, like, a porn store to find, like, listings of strip clubs where she may have worked. And there he meets Joaquin Phoenix, who looks like Billy Joe Armstrong, like circa 99, like 2000, like around American Idiot era, which is actually 5 years after the dates I just listed. But he's dressed like that, except he wears like latex instead of the black t-shirts. I don't know.
Yeah, he dresses like a guy who not only works in a sex shop but is about to like direct a sex movie.
Yeah. And to be honest, I gotta admire Joaquin Phoenix. I like Joaquin Phoenix. I think he's a good actor. I think he's really good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he can play such a variety of roles. Like, I guess the ones I'm thinking of right now are this movie, and then my default for thinking of him is the movie Gladiator. That's what I always think of him as, which he does a great role as Commodus in there. And then as the Joker in the newest movie, or the new Joker movie that just came out, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say that he is one of my favorite actors, and I was very excited for this movie because it has two of my favorite actors in it, Jimmy Gandolfini and the Joaquin Phoenix. So
Joaquin and
Hawk.
the Jimmy.
Yeah.
Gandy.
So basically, this movie's untouchable.
Well, there you have it. You don't have to listen to the end. No, I'm sorry.
Wait, we didn't get into the child porn stuff.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, Joaquin Phoenix does a pretty good job in this movie. And as I was saying, those three roles that I just listed there are three completely different things, and yet he's good in all of them. So I just got to say, Joaquin Phoenix, good actor. Maybe we'll do a Joaquin Phoenix podcast.
I would love that.
But it turns out he talks to Joaquin Phoenix more, and it turns out Joaquin Phoenix has like directions for all the illegal weirdo porn that might involve snuff films and stuff like that.
He's got all the connections to the weird like underground porn swap meets.
Yeah.
Which there are several different ones. And when a guy like Nicolas Cage comes through asking for murder porn, they don't take kindly to it.
Yeah, they don't. So he takes him to several illegal porn bazaars, and like, he's like, "Do you got any snuff films?" And then like a guy who was that Danny Trejo, because it looked just like him, honestly.
I'm not sure.
But like, just whips out a pistol, and it's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Get the fuck out of here!" And like, you know, they throw money at him, and they throw him out.
Yeah, these were believed. We're led to believe that these are the lowest of the low degenerates. And at the mere mention of snuff films, they're like, "Hey, I finally found someone shittier than me," and so they retaliate immediately.
They get mad. But they go to one and they find some snuff films there, but they determine that they're fake because they got two in a row that had the same murdered girl in them. So they're like, okay, so that's fake.
Yeah,
but
I mean, unless they found a pair of twins, and they wanted to do a double feature, so they killed them both, made two movies.
Yeah, it could be. Either way, the snuff films they found had no connection with this case whatsoever.
Yes,
but then like Cage is like, you know, you Joaquin Phoenix, who I don't remember his name. So
Max California.
Oh, Max California. Yeah. That sounds like a porn star if I've ever heard one.
It really does. And I didn't realize until I saw his name in the credits that I thought his name was just Max. And I thought he was calling him like Max California because he like takes him to California and whatever. Yeah. But that's his name. So
But so he's like, "Why are you doing this? You seem like a smart, good guy." Like, and Joaquin Phoenix is like, "Hey, I'm trying to make it in a, you know, like a punk band or something, and like I'm not getting signed, and this is the only thing that pays me enough. I don't endorse this shit, but like when people are looking for it, I direct them to it, and it makes me money." So,
yeah, he likes the cash.
Mm-hmm. They're trying to make it seem like, you know, they're trying to make you like this guy who happens to know a lot about illegal porn. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I questioned it at first, but maybe it's just the Joaquin Phoenix aspect of it, but I couldn't dislike the guy.
Yeah, he seems like a good dude, and he plays some bass.
He plays some bass. He wears some great leather pants and like a fishnet tank top.
Yeah. Looking good. So, as this goes on, I noted that someone seems to be following Cage, but that never really came up all that much.
Yeah, it came up a couple times, very briefly. There's one scene where he goes back to talk to Max California, and when they zoom out at the end of the shot, and there's somebody in a car watching them.
Oh, yeah.
And then it happens again later, but they don't really They don't.
That's never directly addressed, but it kind of comes up later, I guess. Maybe that whoever may have been receiving that information comes up later. But,
yeah.
But it's never directly addressed. But so Cage finds out that Marianne used to work at a place called like Celebrity Films, and he finds the guy Eddie, plays by James Gandolfini, who is there, and he seems to be hiding something when Cage talks to him. And he's like, "Hey, did this girl work here?" And then he's like, "Nah, I've never seen her before," even though he stares at the picture for a long time. And then
he stares with definite recognition and says, "Nah, nah,
not her." So he breaks in after hours and bugs that guy's phone in his office, and then he gives him a cryptic phone call later, like saying, like, "Hey, I know you killed that girl several years ago," and then then rents like an apartment across the street. Also,
Yeah,
I forget to mention
he's rear windowing him, just watching everything he does, including getting his ding dong sucked.
Yeah. So yeah, after he makes that phone call, he just picks up the binoculars, looks out the window, listens to the bugged phone, and hears him make a phone call to us, which he traces. And he says to this guy, like, "Hey, we need to get together and talk face to face. We can't talk on the phone." And then the guy's like, "Hey, fuck you." And then that's it. But Cage traces the number, and it goes to New York to a guy named like I forgot his first name, something Velvet.
It was like Don or I don't know.
Yeah,
something
it started
like
with
that.
a D, but I was guessing Don too. So it's Don Velvet from now on.
Donnie V.
So Phoenix tells him like, "Oh yeah, that's some like BDSM director," and so they fly to New York together to investigate because Joaquin Phoenix is he's the porn guy. He knows everything about the porn.
He's the porn guy. He's got nothing but time.
Yeah. I should mention also in between all these scenes, Cage's wife is like calling him, holding her daughter, their daughter, and being like, "Hey, we just want to talk to you and make sure you're doing okay." And Cage is like, "We're doing great," and lovey-dovey stuff.
Yeah, and then that turns into her repeatedly just desperately trying to get a hold of him.
Yeah. Eventually, as it goes on, she's calling. He's not there to answer. But so they go to New York. They go to some porn stores there, and he finds in another movie the same guy with the satanic star tattoo in the same place in another movie, and Phoenix is like, "Oh yeah, that guy's the Machine or something."
The Machine.
Yeah, which reminds me of a weird like Bert Kirshner comedy bit.
He's a Russian affiliate.
Yeah, he's a Russian affiliate. If anyone hasn't seen that, look up like Bert Kirshner, the Machine. It's funny.
Maybe that's why you thought Danny Trejo was in this movie, because he mistakes his name for as Machete.
Yeah, at first he's like, his name's like Machete. No, Machine. That's it.
Yeah.
So maybe that was Danny Trejo. Well, it wasn't. We see it later, but
some guy.
But it could have been. So they go to that director, Mr. Don Velvet, and
the guy from Fargo. Is that?
Yeah, Peter Stormare is his name, and I mainly remember him from Fargo, but he's also, well, actually, what I really mainly remember him from is in The Lost World, the sequel to Jurassic Park. He gets eaten by a bunch of Compsognathuses.
Yes.
Compsognathus. And that's his best role.
That's
well,
true.
actually, Fargo's probably his best role. I do like that. But yeah, the guy in the 90s who played the weird, tall, fucked up dude in every movie from the 90s, it's that guy.
That sleazy guy.
Yeah, that sleazy dude. So they go to him and commission him, and they're like, "Hey, I want you to make a movie with the Machine. We'll pay you like $10,000." And he's like, "All right." And they're like, I got one condition. I just gotta watch. I gotta be there while it's happening.
I gotta get my little rocks off.
Mm-hmm. So they do that, and then they commission him, and the guy's like, "Yeah, just give me a call later, and I'll tell you where to be and when." And so after that, Cage is like, "Hey, Joaquin, take this money. I got it from the lady who's hiring me to be a private investigator. You just go back home now and leave and don't get hurt. You're a good dude. Get the fuck out of this shit." And then Phoenix is like, "But we're going to be like detectives and shit. I got this. You don't know porn like I do, man." And then he's like, "Yeah, but I think I got it from here." So they're like, "Okay, you think Phoenix is going to go home?" Oh, shit. I wrote it down in my notes. It's Dino Velvet, not Don Velvet.
Okay.
But Cage shows up to the building to watch the movie as it's being directed, and Mr. He's Don Velvet. I don't care. It's a better name than Dino Velvet. Mr. Don Velvet is there, and he's shooting a crossbow at a cross, and the machine is just standing there, like dressed in his usual BDSM gear.
And there's no girls.
Yeah, there's no girls. And then he's like, where are the girls? And he's like, they're always late. But then, what do you know? Mr. Velvet threatens him with the crossbow, and they take his gun away from him. And then Eddie, the head of Celebrity Film, shows up. And then suddenly, also after that, the widow who hired him in the first place, her lawyer who was like involved in the estate account and stuff, he shows up.
Yeah, this whole thing's going off the rails, and then the lawyer shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was already enough of a twist for me, I guess. But then the fucking lawyer showed up, and I'm like, oh, shit. And suddenly they bring in Joaquin Phoenix, and he's like duct taped up. He's got duct tape over his face and shit. And he's getting held up. And they'll say they'll kill Phoenix and Cage's family if they don't bring him the film that they know he has, because, the lawyer's the one who gave it to him in the first place. So the lawyer follows him at gunpoint to go back to his car to go get the film, and he tells him, like, apparently the lawyer commissioned the snuff film for Mr. Dead Rich Guy. Yeah. And he's now, like, he's trying to cover his ass. And he hired Cage because he assumed he was such a young green dude that he wouldn't be able to, like, figure out, like, anything. But Cage did way better than I ever thought he did, and now he's got to kill him.
Yeah, and also part of Nicolas Cage's character throughout this movie is that he's, like, while all this is going on, there's that, like, human part inside of him that is just trying to figure out who would do this and why. Yeah. And he's not getting any answers from anybody. And, like, when he talks to the lawyer, he's like, I just gotta know why.
Yeah, why the fuck would what does he just get off to fucking people being killed? And the lawyer's just like, he did it because he could.
Yeah, that's all you get.
So, eat the rich.
eat the rich. They will kill whoever they want to, as long as it's not themselves.
So Cage brings the film back, and then he's like, and before I give this to you, you just gotta let Joaquin Phoenix go. And they're like, all right, let him go. And they just fucking kill him right there, slit his throat. And sadness.
R.I.P. Maxi California.
Yeah, R.I.P. Max California. R.I.P. Emperor Commodus, but Emperor Commodus should have died. But
R.I.P. What could have been
Johnny
Mark
Cash.
Wahlberg.
Yeah, what could have been Mark Wahlberg. And then they cuff Cage to a bed, and Cage found out from the widow when he told her, like, look into any weird financial records from your husband, like 6-7 years ago, and she called him back a while ago and said, like, well, it turns out, like, he had 5 different bank accounts and he paid out 5 checks that together totaled $1 million. So Cage is like, when Cage is getting cuffed to the bed, he's like, why are you guys still these small-timey thugs and shit? You made $1 million off of this. Why don't you go off and do something else? And then, Mr. Velvet and Eddie are like, whoa, $1 million?
$1 million?
Yeah.
I don't recall that sum.
I don't recall that. So they look at the lawyer, and the lawyer's like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, maybe I shorted you, but, like, blah. So standoff. Mr. Velvet shoots the lawyer with the crossbow, and then the lawyer shoots Velvet with his gun. So those two die. And Cage ends up breaking free in that little scuffle and fight, and the machine and Eddie are chasing after him, but he, like, he stabs the machine in the stomach with, like, a
tire iron or something.
Yeah, some sharp spike he got out of the trunk of his car that he was able to hide. I don't know. But so they chase after him, but Cage gets away, and he gets back in his car. He calls his family and tells them, like, meet me where we had vacation back in the 4th of July. You got to get out of the house. And then he also calls the widow that hired him and says, like, hey, the film is real. It was a lady named Mary Ann Matthews. She got murdered. Like, like, I'll meet with you, like, tonight and tell you everything. And so she's like, oh, okay. And then hangs up.
And keep in mind, when he contacts his family here and, like, tells them out of the blue, like, you have to flee to this location, they've been trying to reach him for God knows how long and have not heard from him.
Yeah,
so his wife is
reasonably
reasonably upset.
Yeah, she's kind of pissed. So yeah, when he meets up with his wife, she's frantic, like she's pissed, she's panicking. He's like, "Why? What's going on? You haven't told me anything about what's happening." And she's freaking out at him, and he doesn't tell her anything at all.
He's
Still,
just like, be cool, be cool.
he's just like, "Be cool. Like, I'll call you and tell you when you can get home. All right? I gotta wash the blood off my face and bust out of these handcuffs that are still on my hand." But he goes to meet with the widow, and finds that the widow has killed herself. And she left a note for him and a note for Marianne's family. So then he goes back to his wife to prepare to do some shit.
It kind of feels like the movie's ending at this.
It really did.
point.
I thought it was going to be just about to be over at that whole part with the crossbow and the porno
That
movie.
really seemed like the ending, and then he reunites with his family, and I was like, okay, credits are about to roll.
Yep. But we've got a whole like half hour of movie left.
Yeah.
And it goes to some darker places.
Yeah, he's not done yet.
He's not done. So he leaves, and as he's leaving, his wife is like, "Well, if you're not gonna tell me anything, don't expect me to be here when you come back." You know. So, and then Cage is like, well, I've got to do this." That's my shitty Nicolas Cage impression, which should really be better considering I've watched like 30 of his movies at this point.
It's pretty spot on, I would have to say. He does a lot of bad accents, so just chalk it up to that.
Yeah. So Cage flies all the way back to LA, and he finds Eddie and just threatens him like immediately. He's like, "You're taking me to where you killed Mary, all right?" And then he hears the whole story from Eddie, which has some bad details where Eddie's like, "I don't know, some guy wants to jerk off and watch a girl die. Well, fuck it. You know, what's the matter to me?
I'm just trying to make some money. I'm Tony Soprano over here.
Yeah, that's what I do, you know?
Get off my back. What are you, Carmella?
God damn it. I gotta go talk to Dr. Milfy now about this shit. So he hears the whole story from Eddie and ties him up, and he's like about to kill him, but Eddie's like, "Do it, you little bitch. Just fucking do it. I know you're not gonna do it." So Cage walks out and he calls Janet, Marianne's mother, and he's like, "Hey, I know you said you wanted to know like the truth, what happened to her, and she's dead, and I know who the men who killed her are, and like give me your permission to punish them."
Yeah.
So
He's like, just tell me you love her, and I will make it happen.
yeah, and she starts crying and saying like, "I love them," and then says like, "Why didn't you tell me this also?" So he goes back in there and he beats James Gandolfini to death with his gun.
Yeah, well, because also one of the things that Gandolfini says to him when he's like calling him a pussy who won't shoot him, he's like, they'll get your fingerprints off the bullet, they'll track you down or whatever. And so he goes back in and he's like, "Joke's on you, bitch." And as I mentioned before, they don't show any of that, but he comes back out and the handle of his pistol is all bloody.
Yeah, it's super bloody. He pulls out some gas cans and lights the whole building on fire. And
He pulls out gas cans and then he has a trunk full of porn that he dumps around James Gandolfini's
Yeah.
body and just burns the whole 9 yards.
burns the whole fucking thing down. So then he flies back to New York and he's got his eyes on the machine.
Oh, yeah.
So he's going to find out where the machine is. He calls around to hospitals to find him since he stabbed him when he last saw him. He assumes the machine had to go to a hospital. And he's right. He finds out, posing as a police officer, that he finds the machine's address and name, which for some reason I neglected to write down.
They say it like once or twice. It's not that important.
It's not. Yeah.
His name's like, Chuck Matthew Jameson or something.
Chuck Matthew Jameson, that's what it is now. And so Cage finds him in the he goes to his house and is like searching around the house while like record is playing. And eventually like the machine just breaks out on him wearing the GIMP mask because he knows he's there. And there's a scuffle and Cage comes out on top and like is aiming a gun at him and says, "Take your mask off." And then the guy takes his mask off and he's like, "What, you were expecting to see a monster? Well, here's the honest truth. I'm just a normal dude. I just like this fucked up shit. I like killing people, all right?"
Yeah. Again, no answers to any of Nicolas Cage's burning questions. Everybody in this movie is their motivation is this is just who I am.
Yeah.
Or I had the opportunity, so I went for it.
Yep. And so he kills the machine. Then he goes home and he just like stumbles into the house and sees that his wife and kid are there and just, cries, reunited with them.
Yeah, just breaks down. And then his wife's like, no, fuck you still.
Yeah. So then later on, he gets a letter from Janet, Marianne's mother, thanking him for punishing the men and giving her closure and letting her know. And she says, I hated you for letting me know, but like, it's good to know that everything's good. And then credits roll. Bam, everything's good. I personally actually think it would have worked better without that last scene with the letter. I didn't need to know that Janet, thanked him eventually. Like, I like it to end even bleaker.
I agree completely. There was a few times where this movie could have ended, but I think it would have been fine if it had ended with him killing the machine and crying on his wife, and then that's it.
But so overall thoughts on this movie? You got any?
I actually really enjoyed this movie. It wasn't great or perfect, and there was some questionable stuff in there, but overall it had a great cast, and it kept me pretty engaged. So
yeah, I was really surprised at the amount of none of them are really big nowadays, I guess, aside from maybe Joaquin and Cage, but the amount of like pretty big people for the 90s who were in this movie, all of a sudden, and that I'd never heard of it before. It kept me engaged for quite a while, like especially the part when they were about to go witness the movie being made and everything that he'd commissioned him for. That got me, and then the whole bit afterwards probably could have been cut down a little bit,
Yeah, it was a very intense movie. I could feel like where like David Fincher's guidance would have gone in this movie, because there's a lot of like Fincher-esque aspects to this movie, but not quite. So I feel like I really enjoyed this movie. Ultimately, it would have been incredible to see what he would have done with it.
Mm-hmm. I think it could have been a really great movie if David Fincher was the director.
Yeah. But overall, I thought this was a pretty solid flick.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the things I have to say. One, it's a very like film noir type homage styled movie. It's got like the same types of shots and stuff like that. And it's mostly set in darkness, and things like that. And I like that. I like that homage type aspect because I like a lot of old film noir movies. I think those are cool movies because I'm a lame ass who likes old movies. But Joaquin Phoenix's character sometimes felt like a bit of a Deus Ex Machina. It's whenever Cage needed any information about porn whatsoever, he
was just there to supply it.
Yeah, but Phoenix paid him or played the character well and everything.
Yeah,
he was believable in what he was doing. And also the scene when he's going through the machine's house, like I just briefly mentioned it in passing, but I thought that was a cool scene because like he walks in and he hears a record playing with like some really loud music that's like boom 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 boom, that industrial EDM from the 90s.
Yeah.
And like as he's walking around, it suddenly cuts out and Cage wanders into the room with the record player, doesn't see him there, and you just keep hearing the skipping of the record that's finished, like over and over again. And then Cage just walks through the house slowly looking at everything, and just the slow record noise playing with that is just cool. I think
it was a very cool, intense scene.
Yeah. And then sorry.
and like the scuffle between them was also very, like, it started out with Nicolas Cage getting thrown through a window.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was all like believable too. You know what I mean? Like it was actually a lot of action scenes, just people do things that are just flat out unbelievable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's because like I think people are kind of desensitized at this point to humanly possible feats. So
Right.
we have to show things that are physically impossible. But like I don't know, he gets tossed out the window, and then the machine comes out to kill him, and like slips off the roof and just falls down and like busts his ass. 'Cause
Yeah.
like, neither of these guys is a fighter, they just do what they do.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like it was all choreographed really well. Because at no point did I feel like I was sure that Nicolas Cage was going to make it out of this or vice versa.
Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, at certain points, I had like a suspicion that Nicolas Cage was going to end up being in the next Snuff film. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
that would have been.
And given
an
the
interesting
tone of the
ending.
movie, it wouldn't have been that off-putting. You know,
It honestly wouldn't have it. I think it would have fit pretty well.
Yeah.
There was a very bleak tone to this entire movie, which is part of why I like. I'm with you. I enjoyed the bleakness of films like this. So.
Yeah. I was surprised by this. You know, I've never heard anything about this movie before. I'd never heard of it. Like when I started watching it, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch like 18 millimeter or 80 millimeter." So, oh, it's 8 millimeter. That's it.
8 Mile.
Yeah, it's 8 Mile. There's gonna be a rap battle. I didn't remember Nicolas Cage being in 8 Mile, but we'll watch B Rabbit, whatever. You know? But yeah, pleasantly surprised with this one.
Honestly, Nicolas Cage would do a great Slim Shady, I bet.
Yeah, let's see it.
You know, I did take a lot of notes.
Oh.
Let's hear him, buddy.
I mean, it's a lot. So, are you ready for them?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
Let's hear it, buddy.
All right. 8 millimeter. Movie has fisting.
Oh.
Gerard Way plays the Phantom of the Opera, and a shoemaker plays chess with Nicolas Cage's Joey shoes. They are kangaroo shoes. He has 8 millimeters and went to Cranbrook. That's a private school. They want more pedophilia. Nick and Mike specifically.
Oh, God.
They are Namblers. Now, Paul Harvey News. Set in 1995 Detroit, Nicolas Cage portrays a young, unhappy blue-collar worker from a poor family. Cage has moved back from 8 millimeter road, to a rundown trailer home in Warren, Michigan, and lives with his alcoholic mother, Stephanie, his younger sister, Lily, and Stephanie's abusive live-in boyfriend, Joaquin Phoenix. Although encouraged by his friends, Cage worries about his own potential as a rapper. One night, Cage freezes during a rap battle at a local venue, and he leaves the stage humiliated. During the day, Cage works at a car factory. When he asks for extra shifts, his supervisor rudely dismisses his request on account of his habitual tardiness. Later on, Cage befriends a woman named Alex. Cage begins taking more responsibility for the direction in his life. When he exhibits an improved attitude and a performance at his work, his supervisor grants him the extra shifts he requested. At some point, Stephanie receives an eviction notice as she can't pay rent. Despite her best attempts to keep the eviction notice a secret, Joaquin Phoenix finds out about it and confronts Stephanie. When Cage attacks Phoenix for threatening his mother, they fight, and Phoenix leaves Stephanie for good. Cage's relationship with Wink, a radio DJ with ties to a record label promoter, becomes strange after he discovers that Wink does promotional group for Cage's rivals, a rap group known as the Leaders of the Free World. At one point, Cage and his friends get into a violent brawl with the Leaders, which is disrupted by Cage's friend Cheddar Bob as he pulls out a gun and accidentally shoots himself in the leg. He survives but is confined to crutches. At work one day, while on lunch break, Cage witnesses a rap battle in which an employee insults a pedophilic coworker named Paul. Cage joins the rap battle and defends Paul. Alex is impressed by Cage's actions, and Wink arranges for Cage to meet with producers at a recording studio. But Cage finds Wink and Alex engaged in intercourse. Enraged, Cage attacks Wink as Alex tries to break up their altercation while filming. In retaliation, Wink and the Leaders of the Free World assault Cage outside of his trailer. The leader of the gang, Papa Doc, holds Jimmy at gunpoint, threatening to kill him until Wink dissuades him. Once the group has left Cage alone, his mother returns with enough money to pay for the eviction, having won it at a bingo tournament. Jimmy's best friend... I fucked this up. Okay, in conclusion, this is a movie about porn, written by somebody who's never seen porn, during times when porn was not easily accessible.
That was an excellent summary of 8 Mile.
That was pretty much spot on.
Yeah.
That's what I watched. So,
I have more, but I'm reading it poorly.
It's okay.
I'm honestly, that's probably the most coherent thing that you've done on this podcast. So I appreciate
it's true.
that.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was from Wikipedia.
I assumed you were reading
is
the
that-
page of 8 Mile.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's wow.
But yeah, it was a good summary here, and overall enjoyable film. I'm in that 52%.
I am part of the 52%.
We are the 52%. All right. And on that note, we're going to occupy Hollywood, or occupy the critics' workspaces.
I'm gonna go beat the shit out of Siskel and Ebert if either of them are still alive. One of them's dead for sure. Maybe both. I don't
Didn't
know.
they get attacked by tigers?
Yep.
Yeah, they did.
We're gonna have to go to Vegas and find Siskel and Ebert.
But we're going to take a short little break, and then we'll be back to you with Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
Ghost Rider 2.
Spirit. Vengeance.
Bye.
Also, the budget on this one is $55 to $75 million. So there's $20 million that is questionable about whether or not it was spent on this movie, and I don't understand that.
It was either used to film the movie or given to the craft services.
Yeah. $20 million on shitty sandwiches. Like,
Ay.
maybe it was in the marketing. I don't know. Because
Yeah,
I remember like when Men in Black 3 came out, didn't they say that was like the most expensive movie of all time to date or something like that? And almost all of the money was in the marketing campaign and not actually in the movie.
I didn't know that.
If I remember correctly, yeah. And I think they might have done that specifically as a marketing ploy even too. Like they spent extra money on marketing to make the budget bigger so that they could say it was the most expensive movie of all time, and then that was a marketing ploy, you know?
Yeah, wait, was that the newest Men in Black or Men in Black 3?
Men in Black 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the newest one doesn't even have Will Smith in it, does it?
I don't think so. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was the last one that had Will Smith in it. But I'm gonna Google right now. What's the most expensive movie of all time? I feel like when Avatar came out, that was the most expensive.
It was, definitely.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't Titanic extremely expensive too?
Gotta spend money to make money, baby.
I think Titanic was, but Avatar, I think, really strikes me because it was like $100 million, and that was a huge budget. And now that's just like
That's
typical
chump change.
Yeah, that's what most big movies have now, which is
Yeah.
insane. Like, I don't know. I guess because, I've become like, a more conscious adult of these things than I was for the rest of my life. And like to just think about how different the actual climate that I've grown up in for movies is from what it was historically. And that I never noticed these changes happening because they changed at a time when I wasn't looking up movie budgets.
You weren't
I
paying
didn't-
attention at the time.
Yeah. Like,
But now it's like the more you spend on a movie, the worse it will be.
yeah, seriously. I don't know. Have you seen this whole like controversy about like Martin Scorsese and
with
Marvel?
Shitting on Marvel, yeah.
Yeah. Which like I don't know. I feel like that's if people like Marvel movies, that's cool. I'm not going to shit on you for liking what you like, but like
Yeah,
I totally understand what it is that he's saying,
Well,
that it's
what
kind of
he's-
like killing off the opportunity of smaller filmmakers because it all
Yeah.
goes to these big budget movies that are the same exact fucking thing.
Yeah, what he's
Like-
saying is spot on. Like, on the one hand, he does come off as like a grumpy old man, but he's one of the greatest living directors. And
Yeah.
The Irishman is in theaters right now, but it'll be on Netflix at the end of this week, and I'm so excited to watch it.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you it'll be 10 times better than Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
So
I didn't even see Endgame. I feel like
it's good. I mean, I liked it as
I feel like that's all anyone can really say about most,
you can't really go in depth about them. Like they're not deep movies.
Yeah.
The thing that I
They're
appreciated,
investments. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's really what I feel like all these fucking big budget movies now are just a fucking investment. I'm sorry. It's like they put enough money in it. They make it safe enough that anybody can watch this and walk away feeling okay with it and not tell people to not go see it.
right?
And they make a shitload of money off of it, and they're not in it to make a movie. They're in it to make a solid investment.
They make something big and shiny. Yeah. And I mean, like, what I liked about Endgame specifically was that I thought it did a good job of wrapping up, like, the 30 movies that led up to it. But without those movies, it wouldn't have had that impact. So it's kind of, I mean...
Well, and from what I heard, a lot of people talked about it like it was the end of Marvel, but they're still cranking out movies. They still got a bunch more planned for the next 5 years.
Also, that's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
3 hours.
That's another thing that I never noticed as a kid is how the average movie has gotten much longer than it used to be also. Like, movies used to be, on average, an hour and a half, and a 2-hour movie was like an extra long one, and like a 2.5-hour movie was a real long one. Now movies average at least 2 hours, usually push 2.5.
Right.
And
do you think that has to do with the fact that like VHS tapes are no longer like, you know, prohibiting the length of things?
They don't have to worry about
releases?
splitting it into like 2 tapes.
yeah, I think that might have something to do with it. But
Maybe
also,
just directors are getting more self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's another thing too that I think is like director's cuts became like a thing, and then if you actually look into H Bomber guy did a good video about director's cuts recently that is interesting. If you actually look into the history of them, director's cuts were almost immediately a marketing ploy by the studio and never actually like the actual director. The first director's cut that was ever released was Blade Runner.
Oh, the final cut.
Yeah, and no, the director's cut, because the final cut came out afterwards. And Ridley Scott didn't even actually have that much say in the director's cut. The studio cut it and called it the director's cut, and he wrote some suggestions and a memo and said what he would do with it, and then they followed that, but also did their own thing. And like that's really what most of them are at this point. Is like they release an extra one that wasn't in theaters, and now like. Even that's kind of fallen apart. I'm sorry. I've gone off of a tangent at this point. But
and see, in regards to Avengers being 3 hours, the new Scorsese movie is 3.5 hours, which is insane. But I would much rather sit through 3.5 hours. Like people complain about the runtime of movies like fucking Heat and Casino that are all like 3 hours long, but. And I could see being put off by that, but with movies like Heat specifically,
at least something is always happening during those 3 hours.
Sucked in for 3 hours. Like I am willing to watch that for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And
whereas like the Avengers Endgame movie was like 3 hours to fit all the cameos in.
Right. Essentially, they're like, okay, we have 40 characters we got to put on screen. We have like these 10 different loose ends we have to wrap up. And you know, new threads to start to keep people wanting more. And I mean, I enjoyed the movie, but it's not a movie that I'm gonna look back on. And like for example, I just put together like my list of my favorite movies of the decade because I was feeling corny, and. Not a single Marvel movie on. I mean, I put Logan on there, but not like Marvel Cinematic Universe. Didn't make the cut because like I enjoy going to see those movies, but looking back on what movies like had an actual impact, on how I felt about it, at least those movies don't really clock.
This is, I think, kind of a full circle sort of conversation, because another thing that I think really impacts that is the fact that a lot of television, such as like The Sopranos and like, Breaking Bad and etc., are really cinematic in nature and give you way, way, way more than just like an hour and a half movie could possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I actually feel like that is a little bit of a factor in why movies are getting longer, because they're taking a little, because like a TV series that is 14-hour-long episodes can give you way more character development, and they're trying to a lot of
they're trying to match that level of character development.
Yeah, so they end up getting longer and longer, but like there are certain ones that are that long and just don't have character development, or what they view as character development is not really character development. It's a person changing their mind about a specific issue, but they didn't change as a person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
They're not that far off from where they started at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know. TV is movies now.
Yeah, it's true. And
right.
Like, so the other day I sorry, I keep bringing up The Sopranos and The Irishman. But the other day I was like, when I first saw the runtime that of The Irishman being 3.5 hours, I was a little put off. But then literally the next day I sat down and watched like 5 straight hours of The Sopranos. And I was like, if the content is good, the runtime is irrelevant, you know?
Well, that's a thing in that H Bomber guy video that he talked about. The Apocalypse Now is like almost a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
And he said, like, it doesn't feel like 3 hours while you're watching it. It's a really great movie. But then, like, 20 years later, he released the director's cut, which adds an extra half hour to it. And that movie felt like it was 6 hours long because that extra half hour just added so much drag to it and killed any momentum that the other scenes had that like, made it feel so much worse and so much longer that it was like a slog to sit through.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, like the momentum of a movie is very important, which is like, have you heard that Netflix is kicking around the idea of adding like a 1.5 speed option?
Really?
Which is like, pacing is it's so important in a lot of things. Some things it doesn't matter, but I can't imagine wanting to watch anything like if it's an audiobook, I can understand.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Even with an audiobook, I get it if it's a nonfiction book. If it's a fiction book, I feel like the pacing is really important. If it's a nonfiction book, it's how fast can you absorb this information?
Right.
You know what I mean? But when it's like a nonfiction book, or when it's a fiction book, or any work of fiction like that, I feel like the pacing is honestly 80% of what makes it good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the speed is an aspect to it that is part of the art form. That's why, I don't know, like paintings time doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But like with movies, time matters, just like with music. You know what I mean? Like time is part of the art form, and like if you're fucking with the time, it's how is that really any different than like changing the color settings and like fucking with the
right,
like,
you're not gonna put the wall on 1.5 speed so you can get through the whole album faster. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Oh, and in case we are recording right now, which I have a feeling
we are.
I should mention that H Bomber guy video is also like 50% Shannon Strucci, and she doesn't get a lot of respect on that, but she does really good work. And well, she's in the new one a little bit more.
Credit to Shannon Strucci, is it?
Yes.
Credit to Shannon.
God damn, we've been recording for like 20 minutes.
Okay. So, all right. Well, it's been like Ghost Rider.
Ghost
Rider 2, Spirit of Vengeance.
Was I supposed to be taking notes on all that? Because I wasn't.
Go ahead.
That was the important part.
So, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance is the sequel to 2007's Ghost Rider film. It is a Marvel movie that was not owned by Disney. Just like, in 2007, Disney did not own Marvel yet. Yeah. So and it's a sequel to the movie from 2007 where whatever studio this was still retained the rights. I don't remember the studios. I look at the producers. If you're interested in production, which I think is actually an interesting and good thing to keep track of in the movie industry, especially considering this day. If you look at what production companies are, they're getting smaller and smaller. There's less and less of them. And the only variation comes from indie movies with like maybe $1 million budgets. And everything that has a budget bigger than that is generally a budget of like $100 million and is usually made by one of 3 studios at this point. It's kind of sad. But production companies for this movie were Marvel Entertainment, Crystal Sky Pictures, Hyde Park Entertainment, and Imagination Abu Dhabi, which is imagination with an E, so it's image because images.
Oh.
And this movie is rated PG-13. It came out in 2011. It is directed by Mark Neveldine and Adrian Taylor. Rare to see a duo of directors if they're not, siblings. So
that's the Coen brothers.
Coen brothers or the Wachowskis or or going back to Bangkok Dangerous, whatever their names were, brothers.
Well, I was really hoping you were going to pull that one out.
Pang brothers.
It's the Pang brothers. Yes, that is correct. So don't you dare fact check us on that.
This had a runtime of 95 minutes and a budget of, and I can't get a concrete number on this, it's $55 to $75 million. So
it's, there might have been some shady dealings with this one. We don't really know. Wikipedia doesn't know, so why should we?
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to fucking keep track of this. If you want to find out, do your own deep digging. I know that's probably what you listen to this for, but you know what? Sorry.
Our listeners love stats, and I don't blame them.
Box office gross of $132.6 million. So this is another one in the black. Baby.
This is a double in the black episode.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened before.
Truly unprecedented.
So that's 9 out of 24 movies. That's not a good record. But
It's not a good record, but for this episode, it's a pretty damn solid record.
Rotten Tomatoes, this got an 18% critic rating and an audience rating of 32%. So about equally loved by critics as the last movie, but significantly less audience affection for this one.
Yeah. This is, I don't know, this is one of those movies where I know a handful of people who have seen it, and they're like, it's actually better than most people would have you believe, or it's fun in a stupid way. But for the most part, it's not really part of the zeitgeist, really.
No.
Nobody's talking
No one
about...
remembers this movie.
Yeah.
People will remember the first Ghost Rider sometimes, but not this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, I saw the first Ghost Rider probably in theaters, and by the time this came around, I was like, I was not eager to go see another installment. So the same deal with the Fantastic Four. Like, I still have never seen the Silver Surfer sequel.
Yeah,
so.
I actually don't think I've seen either of those movies personally. But that's all the statistics I got for this one. Let's look at some fun facts. Yeah.
All right, let me hit you. So the first fun fact, of course, I am again reading off IMDb. The first fun fact was written specifically for you.
Ooh.
So there's a cameo. The directors make a cameo when Nicolas Cage is explaining the deal with the devil, and they're doing a handshake mirroring the cover to "Wish You Were Here."
Oh, yeah, that actually appears in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally turned to the guy I was watching this movie with and said, like, that's like discount Wish You Were Here.
And that's exactly what they were going for.
For the listener, that's one of my favorite albums of all time. If you're curious about my music taste.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you out there, but
okay.
I thought you would enjoy that.
I do.
So after this film, the live action film rights to Ghost Rider went back to Marvel, which obviously they haven't really done anything with that I know of, at least. Eva Mendes turned down the option to reprise her role. Peter Fonda also not reprising his role.
Yeah, and they don't really acknowledge that. So, like, they just assume that you know that his character is the same one, but, like, I watched it and I was like, who's that?
Yeah, and I also am not... Is it the same guy? I don't really
know, because in the first one, they would always call him, like, Mephisto or Mephistopheles, and in this one, they call him the devil, and I'm not sure if they're supposed to be the same character or not, but
Unclear.
It seems like they are, because at the very end of the movie, he says to Cage, like, you were the worst deal I ever made.
Yeah.
So, I assume, but...
Not completely clear, though. So this I actually didn't even realize. Unlike the previous film, the full transformation from Johnny Blaze to Ghost Rider is never depicted. We get before and after shots, and that's it.
Interesting.
Because
this one seemed to have a bigger budget, at least in the fight scenes. So maybe they put all the money to the fight scenes and then didn't want to put it into the transformation scenes. I don't know.
Yeah, or they were just like, you've seen the transformation. We're just gonna focus on all the whip 'em ups, and whatnot.
The chains,
yeah,
the fire chains,
fire chains. This was the God of War movie, actually. This is the second film to be released under the Marvel Knights banner, which I was not expecting to see at the beginning. Beginning of the movie.
I don't know what that is, so school me.
I mean, I read a lot of comics, but I'm not good at the history. But Marvel Knights is one of those like subsidiaries of, I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's like a little subset.
Yeah, it's like the Justice League Dark to the Justice League that is Marvel.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. That's probably a poor explanation, but
I mean, it was a little weird. But it's the DC to the Marvel.
That's all I've got, really. So this also was originally intended to be a dark and violent R-rated adaptation, because they wanted to satisfy all the fans who were disappointed by the first movie. I can't talk.
It's okay.
But that obviously did not happen. What else do we got? We got a Wilhelm scream.
We did have a Wilhelm scream. I noticed that. Usually when a movie has a Wilhelm scream, it's either a tongue-in-cheek comedy movie or it's a movie that is failing to connect in some way, and they throw that in there. But
And we'll let you determine which this movie was. The only other fun fact I have is that so Idris Elba's in this movie, and he apparently wears contact lenses that are pretty much the same as his ones as Heimdall in the Thor movies.
you know, I was wondering if he was wearing contacts because every time I would see him, it was like his eyes look off. Am I just too far away from the TV?
Yeah.
Or but
Because I mean, I could definitely sense it because I've done a lot of just staring at Idris Elba. He's a very
Idris elbowing.
Yeah.
As in your elbow is hitting the table as you
he's
masturbate.
w-
He's an attractive man.
in my opinion, he's one of the most attractive human beings that I've ever seen, and I can't help but think of that every time I see him. So,
Who are we talking about? Sorry, I was in the other room.
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, yeah. He's an actor.
Like Jessica Elba?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put that in my notes.
Okay.
But, okay. So moving on to a plot summary here. So at the start of the movie, this woman, who I never really got her name, but she is the mother of this boy, Danny, is escaping after some Spec Ops team comes and a shootout is going on, and Idris Elba is running after them and says, I'll protect you, and they're like, nope, and they run away from him, and there's a big chase with the bad guy chasing him, and the bad guy's name is like Corrington or
Yeah,
something.
Carrington.
Carrington, that's it.
Yeah, it's basically Idris Elba meets Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who is playing a monk. And while they're meeting, they get ambushed by a team of dudes with guns. We'll call them your Call of Duty squad.
Yeah.
And
COD Squad.
yeah, yes, they're the COD squad. And we don't really know what their beef is yet, but they definitely want to kill all these poor vampire slaying monks.
Yeah.
So
Just murder them all. So, anyways, then after that, this is all in Romania, which Cage has moved to since the last movie. And we see in a comic book style animation thing with a Cage voiceover summarizing the first movie, which if you want a summary of it, go listen to our last episode, which is probably a lot longer than you want to listen to.
episode insert number of that episode.
Yeah, episode that one. Yeah. The Halloween episode
Yeah.
that came out in September.
Pay the Ghost versus Ghost Rider. The ghost of Halloween past has returned.
Oh no. But anyways, basically Cage in that movie made a deal with the devil and it made him the Ghost Rider and he regrets it, but also he's the fucking Ghost Rider and the Ghost Rider kills people.
Super
learn
rad.
more. We'll learn
His
more
head's on
about
fire.
it. His head's on fire.
Coolest way to trim your pubes is to turn into a flaming skeleton.
Exactly. It burns all the hair right off. So then Idris Elba comes to see, and I believe he's named Moreau in this movie, but he's Idris Elba, I don't care. He comes to see the Cage Rider. Also, I should mention, his name is Johnny Blaze. He is the Ghost Rider. But he's not. His name is Johnny Cage, and he is the Cage Rider. Okay?
Also,
it's the preface thing.
Something that threw me off was that they were, for some reason, trying to make him sound like more professional in this movie. Everybody was calling him John Blaze.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, you can call him Johnny Blaze. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's supposed to.
Yeah.
John Blaze actually sounds way stupider because that's not anything.
Yeah, that's not a name. Johnny Blaze sounds like, some jokey thing, but John Blaze sounds...
Right.
That sounds made up.
just-
Sounds like a news anchor.
Or maybe a wrestler. Not even a wrestler. Wrestler would be Johnny.
Wrestler would definitely go with Johnny Blaze. John Blaze is a fucking...
It's a John Doe who smokes weed.
Yeah. He's a businessman who's afraid to commit to his badass subconscious.
But Idris Elba comes to see the Cage Rider, He knows who Cage is. He knows he's the Cage Rider, and he says he'll help if Cage will help in his little scheme. He'll lift Cage's curse and make him not the Cage Rider anymore. He'll just be human again and regular old Johnny Cage.
John Cage.
Yeah, John Cage. He creator of 433. That's a classical music joke for anybody who's interested.
I understood that.
After that, we cut and people are still chasing after the mother and Danny. The Danny is like 12, I believe. Yeah, he's 12.
Yeah, he's 12, and they're
Coming on 13.
yeah, like she's like a con artist who's like using her son to gain an advantage to fool people.
Yeah.
And they're still being followed by the COD Squad.
Yeah, the COD Squad's all on them. And the guy after them is named Carrington.
It's her ex something?
I have literally no idea their relation to one another.
I feel like they don't address it more than once or twice, but I believe that we're led to believe that he has like pumped a load in her.
Okay.
Maybe not the one that created this kid, but
Yeah.
one of them.
One of them. One thing I will say is I have a lot of notes about this movie, but throughout the movie, I was never entirely sure what the fuck was going on.
It's really all over the place.
So Carrington is about to kill Danny's mother when the Cage Rider suddenly shows up after his deal with Idris Elba, and he stops them from killing the mother, but they kidnap Danny and get away with him.
Oh,
So-
shit. Oh,
After-
and this is I had to stop and take a second to myself after this part. So there's a scene where when he transforms into the Ghost Rider. I believe the scene ends with him looking directly at the camera and saying, "So that happened."
Yeah.
And
That's true. There are a lot of one-liners that didn't connect coming
Oh,
from the Cage Rider in
man.
this one. And I didn't take note of all of them, but there was another particular one. God, I can't remember it now. But yeah, there are a lot of bad one-liners in this movie coming from the Cage Rider.
yeah, just I don't know, they're trying to appeal to and I'm doing finger quotes, the internet generation. I don't know.
They're trying to be, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Right. Well, we've already seen that in the movie. We've already referenced that. So all we have left is for Nicolas Cage to say, "So that happened." I bet you're wondering how I got here.
But after that, Carrington talks to some dude on the phone who I was like, who the fuck is this? But it's supposed to be Peter Fonda's character from the previous movie, Mr. Satan himself.
Dr. Satan.
Not Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball Z, but
Pretty close.
but yeah. But and the guy's like, that kid's like a computer, and I'm gonna install a firewall now on him so that Ghost Rider can't figure out where he is. You know?
And everybody who's ever owned a computer is like, "Hell yeah, I understand."
I get it. I too have a firewall.
He should take that kid and install endpoint antivirus in his skull.
Let's get some McAfee up in here. Then Cage wakes up in the hospital after his Ghost Rider incident. And he hears the police are about to talk to him. So he's like, nope, noping the fuck out of here. And as he's leaving, he sees the mother of Danny. And he follows her and tells her, like, I need to find your son. It's part of this job that Idris Elba gave me. And it turns out she's the devil's baby mama. And
Shit.
and that's why everyone is after Danny. He's the son of Satan.
Danny, is that short for Damien?
Maybe.
Is that short for freaking Dammy?
Danny
This
is short for Dammy, which is short for Damien.
What if his name was actually Dammy in this movie, and we just thought it was Danny because that's an actual name?
It could have been. I don't know. I didn't. I had the movie a little quiet. Maybe
That's
I heard it wrong.
Well, I'll call him Dammy.
So then Cage interrogates some guy to find out what Carrington is doing with Danny or where he's going with him. And then my next note on this just says, scraping at the door, which is what he says as he's standing there. And he's like, you know that guy who had like the flaming skull and everything? He's in me and he wants to come out and he's scraping at the door. And he does a little Cage freak out. And it's honestly, I've seen better Cage freakouts at this point. And I've only seen like maybe a third of his filmography. So, actually, hold on. This is episode 16.
We're almost halfway there.
We're almost halfway there. That's insane to think about.
It is.
Holy crap.
We're at 30 out of 82.
Yep.
Not including the several movies that
32.
he's released this year.
Did you see that he's about to star in a movie?
About himself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I'm so excited for.
I honestly...
We're going to throw that in the bracket once. There's another movie that he was in before that I can't remember, but it looked like some Bangkok Dangerous style thing.
Yeah, it looks strange. But basically, there's never been a better time to be part of the cage fight fandom.
It's true. Tell all your friends. Because they're all going to be talking about this.
You know what? Like and retweet our once a month tweets that I forget to post.
Yeah, I forget to post a lot of them as well. So it's just get on that. But so after that, like they find out where he's going, and we get a weird green screen cage freak out on a motorcycle where he's like partially turned it into the cage rider.
Yeah, he's like kind of bouncing back and forth.
And he's going like,
there's a skull behind you.
So they show up at the site, and that's where Carrington is buying javelin missiles. The mother sneaks in and frees Danny, and they escape together. And Cage fucks up the bad guys, and the missiles don't do shit to him. He takes over some giant piece of mining equipment, because this isn't a quarry, and turns that into
the Ghost Rider vehicle.
Yeah, which is honestly kind of awesome.
It's the fight scenes and stuff, and him like mounting different vehicles are so cool in this movie.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say. In the first movie, comparing this one to the first movie, the first Ghost Rider, the fight scenes in this one are way better than they were in the first one. They were actually kind of lame in the first one. They were almost nothing. The story, on the other hand, in the first one made at least a bit more sense than this one did. So,
and it's the reverse this time.
Yeah,
like all the in between fight scenes and stuff are pretty great. But then all the filler is like completely uninteresting.
There's some cool shit with vehicles in this movie with the cage rider. Like that, I don't even know what that piece of construction equipment was. It was like a giant like crane that had like a spinning death wheel on the front.
I don't know what it was, but it looked cool as fuck when it turned into a Ghost Rider vehicle.
It's true. Do you play Overwatch?
I have. Yeah.
You know, fucking what's his face is the Riptire.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Junkrat,
yeah.
It had like that at the front, and he was just like blasting through bad guys, and it was a giant. It's cool.
Yeah,
just watch that scene.
Yeah, I mean, the fight scenes are great. If there's a director's cut of this movie, it should be like 35 minutes. Yeah. Just like all the story cut out and him like beating the shit out of people.
Yeah. So then he chases after Danny and Danny's mom, who are running away because he's compelled to do so, and he's not really in control of himself when he's the cage rider and not the cage. So Danny, then he catches up to them, but Danny is able to like turn him back into normal. He's like able to shut him down somehow with his... Danny's got these mystical powers that are not defined really at all. We don't really know what they are. We just know that they're somehow equal to Satan because he's Satan's son.
He's got the Shining.
Danny's got the Shining. That was a thing.
Danny's got the Shining.
I was watching this movie and I was like, if they ever have a weird supernatural kid in a movie, it's got to be Danny.
It's got to be Danny.
In that fight before with the cage rider, Cage basically killed Carrington. And then Satan shows up at the Carrington. He's like, you haven't completed the job, so I'm turning you into Magic Decay Man, which is, I didn't know this because it's never said in the movie, but his name is Blackout, apparently. It's on the Wikipedia page. So
I had no idea.
So I'll refer to him as Blackout from now on, but that's what he is. So he has... Satan endows him with these powers where he can touch things, any organic material or metal material that would rust. Anything that naturally decays, he can accelerate it and make it decay faster. So he does that so he can finish the job and kill the cage rider and get Danny back for Satan's evil scheme involving the son of Satan.
And he can look badass in the meantime while he's figuring it all out.
Yep. Then... in my notes here, I just have one line, Ghost Rider Flame P.
Oh, yeah.
Where he explains to Danny. Danny says, like, what does it look like when you pee? And he's like, it's like a flamethrower. And then it cuts to him shooting flames out of his dick. And it's certainly a thing.
Some would call it unnecessary, but I would call it vital to this movie.
If that wasn't in there, if it weren't for scenes like that, there wouldn't be a whole lot watchable about this movie. This would be in the director's cut that we were talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, then Cage, Danny, and the mom, which I'm just gonna call her mom. She's not my mom, for the record. When I say mom, it is not my mother. It's Danny's mother.
It's Danny's mother. It's not Nick's mother.
Yeah, they all meet up with Idris Elba, and he takes them to see some monks. We'll take care of Danny, and Elba is like, "All right, you fulfilled your deal. You got them here. I'm gonna cure you of your riderness."
Your rider poison.
Yeah, so then Cage is like, what is this thing in me? And Idris Elba is like, well, I thought they told you this in the last movie, but or maybe that was me saying that. I don't know. But so we didn't hear all of the story. They just kind of ham-fisted that line in there so that he could explain what the Ghost Rider is, even though it was pretty clearly explained that the Ghost Rider was some with Satan in the last movie.
Yeah, I mean, that was essentially the entire premise of the last movie.
But now we're saying that the Rider was apparently an angel of justice from God who was captured by Satan and corrupted, so that instead of fighting for justice, it now wants to punish people. And it went from the angel of justice to the spirit of vengeance. Title.
Boom.
Bam. Bam.
He's gone from the Ghost Rider to what I would call the Ghost Rider 2.
Yeah, it's true. So then basically Idris Elba gives Cage communion. He's just like, drink this wine and it's good wine, right? And then this is body of Christ, this bread, body of Christ.
Body of Christ.
And then he sends them off into these catacombs of the monks on their own. And he just walks into a room and then like stares at the ceiling and then isn't the Ghost Rider anymore. I don't understand.
Yeah, he goes on a spirit journey to become the Angel Rider.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, he just becomes the angel now, I guess. He walks out and he's like, I'm cured, Mr. Elba, I'm cured. And then he looks over and bam, it looks like all those monks are suddenly about to kill Danny because, you know, he's Satan's kid and they're monks and they're servants of God. But then I don't really know what happens here exactly, but Cage and Idris Elba and, you know, Mom get taken away. And then the monks are about to kill Danny, and then Blackout shows up and kills the monks, and he's like, I'm taking you, Danny. And then Cage and Elba and Mom are there, and they're like, what happened here? And I'm like, that scene really confused me.
The back half of this movie was extremely confusing.
Yeah, very rushed, too.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place.
But yeah, so they sit there and they try to figure out where Blackout took Danny because they're like, it doesn't look like Danny did this. They're weird rotting skeleton corpse things. And then they're like, okay. So then they go and apparently the monks collected a bunch of guns because
monks love guns.
Yeah, monks love weird illegal weaponry. And they're like, we're gonna go crash this party. And then I don't know how they found out where the fuck they were or anything like that. Nothing. I don't know. But
I'm not certain about anything that happens in this movie.
But essentially, some shit's going down because Danny is turning 13 and he's Satan's son. He's like the Antichrist.
Yeah,
and
he's
that
going to be
means-
bar mitzvahed into hell.
Yeah, he's going to be bar mitzvahed into being as powerful as Satan, and Satan's going to have, like, and he's like, hey, you're going to help me do my Satanly activities. So, Cage, Elba, and Mom get their guns and they're going to go fuck this party up, right? So they come in and they crash the party. There's, like, these weirdo monks that have shown up from all around the world in robes, like, going chanting while, like, shadows pass from Satan to Danny. And the gang comes in, crashes, it starts shooting everybody. Idris Elba's just mowing down unarmed people in the stands who probably would have fucked them up, but we don't really know because he was shooting them before. they had the opportunity.
There's no way of knowing.
Yep. Then Blackout shows up and he just decays Idris Elba. He grabs him and just turns him into a pile of rotted dust. And then he moves on to Cage, who can't fight back now because he's not the Cage Rider anymore. He's just regular old Johnny Cage.
John Cage.
John Cage, I'm sorry. He's regular old John Cage preparing a piano. And then as he's about to kill Cage, like Danny walks up and then he's like, "Hey, Satan, Dad, you said I got all your powers, right?" And then Satan's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Well, cool, I'm going to make him the Ghost Rider." and turns Cage into the...
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, no, why did I tell my son that?" And then, bam, Cage Rider is back. He powers up. He fucking fights Blackout. Everybody runs away in the meantime. There's a big car chase. And then Cage Rider is gaining on him with his motorcycle that he got again somehow. And
there's a point where he like gets a new motorcycle, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to I wasn't sure if I was seeing it for the first time or if at a previous point they were like, "Hey, he's got a new whip," and he's
well, it got blown up in the first fight, I think, his old motorcycle,
yeah.
so he got a new one, but they never really introduced the new one or where he got it from. He just had it.
Probably just stole it from some vagrant, right?
Yeah. And so he's gaining on them, and there's a big fight that's pretty cool in a car chase. It reminds me of the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark fight where they're fighting on moving cars, when he's like, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he slides under the car and everything, and it's like punching the Nazi and climbing on. It's kind of like that. He fights with Blackout on the hood of like a moving vehicle and stuff. And
it's like finally entertaining again.
Yeah. And he like takes over a new like car and turns that into a Ghost Rider whip thing.
Still cool. Mm-hmm. That aspect will never lose its luster.
It's true. I just wish they'd focus more on that.
Yeah. Just have him hopping from car to car, setting it on fire.
That could have been a movie all in and of itself, and it probably would have been better and more coherent than this film. But,
for sure, I would have loved it.
Yeah. But so he does that. He kills Blackout while fighting on the car hoods by doing his death stare. I forgot what it is.
Vengeance. I spent this entire movie trying to remember what his like vengeance stare was called.
Yeah, seriously.
And they never mentioned it. So
yeah, they never gave it a name again. And I was like, fuck.
It has a name, a specific name, but I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. But he kills him that way. And then after that fight, he like whips Satan's car with his chain and like pulls off the rear axle and it flips and falls. And then he walks up and he pulls Satan out and he's like, "Go back to hell." And just Satan goes back to hell. I mean,
Satan's not one to argue.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, fine. Fuck you, Dad. I'm gonna go rule the underworld.
This is the prequel to Little Nicky.
Yeah. After the car accident, Danny is dead. So then he's like, hold on here. But like Idris Elba told me that the rider was the angel of justice. I can feel the angel in me. And his hand becomes like a skeleton, but with a blue flame instead of a red flame. And he touches Danny and he heals Danny because apparently the angel of justice can bring people back to life. It's cool.
Why not?
Yeah. Danny's back alive, and then
he's still Ghost Rider out in the daylight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was another thing. In the first movie, they established that his powers only worked at night and not during the day.
Right.
And in this movie, almost all of the fights are during the day, and I just didn't understand.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if looking back on it after seeing the end, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember honestly if
something happened.
If something happened that explained why, like when he was bestowed his angel powers or whatever, he was able to fight at any time. But I don't know. It was not really explained.
Yeah, it wasn't explained at all. Maybe they were assuming because this movie came out 4 years after the last Ghost Rider that no one had watched that one since then, so no one was going to remember. But yeah, that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, and it's my favorite movie.
It's the greatest film of all time. Move over, Citizen Kane. Orwell's got nothing on who wrote this movie. Hold on. I closed the page and I'm not opening it again.
Move over Citizen Kane, Godfather, and Ghost Rider Part 1.
Yeah.
Because Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance is in the house.
But yeah. Thoughts?
I mean, I kind of brushed over it before. Where like there was a lot of really cool stuff in this movie that was very entertaining. But as soon as something entertaining stopped, it was followed by 20 minutes of like stuff that you couldn't really be bothered to pay attention to because it was just so uninteresting.
It was not only so uninteresting, but even if you did pay close attention to it, you didn't really gather anything from it. It was supposed to advance the plot, but it seemed like the plot was moving regardless of what was happening, and whatever they were saying didn't matter. And it didn't help you understand what was going on any better.
And so this movie in itself is a good representation of how I feel about a lot of these movies, where like there's some cool flourishes and some nice fight scenes and stuff, but as a coherent piece, it's just all over the place. And
It's kind of a mess. One thing I wanted to point out, there are weird camera angles throughout the whole thing and a lot of cuts, at least the first half. The second half seems to become a more normal movie, and I wonder, it's got 2 directors. I wonder if one director directed the first half and the other did the second. Yeah. But I don't know if they were like trying to emulate like comic book panels and trying to make it look like that, but they had some choices. It was very stylized, and then they like gave up on it. It was weird. And I don't know. It's also filled with a bunch of quick cuts and weird slow-mo that make things kind of awkward to watch. But I don't know. It's got some cool fight scenes. Just look up the fight scenes on YouTube and skip this one.
Overall, some fun elements, but not very satisfying to watch as a whole. So,
for narrative coherence, I would take the first Ghost Rider over this one. Although, honestly, I just wish they took the fight scenes out of this one and put them in the first movie.
Yeah, combine these 2 movies.
And you would have had a
something.
good Ghost Rider movie.
Yeah.
But so Dave, you got some notes on the plot here?
Hot damn do I.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Ghost Rider 2. This movie is the sequel to Avatar. Movie is owned by Disney and is part of the Sopranos universe. It is set in Hyde Park, Chicago, except for Cage, who is in Bangkok with the dangerous Payne brothers. They have $75 million. They love stats. This movie is in blackface, which is truly unprecedented.
Oh, God.
This movie is like the popular internet phenomenon video Zeitgeist, which is how Nick Cage became red-pilled. He buys a dinosaur skull in Bangkok after making a deal with the devil over the song I Wish You Were Here by Incubus. He is not wearing a shirt. Eva Mendes plays Ghost Rider. She blazes and drinks Johnny Walker, so they call her Johnny Blaze, which is accurate. This movie is also God of War. Now Paul Harvey News. Jessica Alba is the most attractive man on earth. This woman has Danny is it Trejo or Trejo? Trejo, cool. This woman has Danny Trejo as a son, and he is protected in the shootout by Miss Alba. Buffy the Vampire Slayer gets ambushed by the Call of Duty squad, and sparkling vampires appear. Now Cage is in Romania. There is no further mention of the dreaded Payne brothers. His head is still on fire. So is Jessica Alba's. The Cage Rider appears, and he sounds more professional. John Doe appears smoking weed. His subconscious is badass. At this point, it is not clear who the Cage Rider and the Ghost Rider is due to poor communication on the director's part. Danny Trejo pulls a Benjamin Button and turns 12, and Jeffrey Epstein takes him for a ride on his airplane with Carrington. He pumps a load in him and creates a kid. That kid is the Ghost Rider. They go to the Ghost Rodeo at this point. At the Ghost Rodeo, there is a bull. The bull's name is Borther. He is a spooky ghost bull with a soft side. Also, a badass side. Sometimes his head catches on fire and he rides a 60s Triumph motorcycle. His best friend is a skeleton. The skeleton's name is John Skeleton Camp. He is also spooky, but he has a soft side. Also, he has a badass side. Sometimes his head catches on fire too. There is an old man in a cowboy hat. His name is Hoss. He is the boss. He is a spooky ghost, but he has a soft side. He owns a general store. The general store is spooky, but it is also badass. Sometimes it catches on fire. There is a heroine. Her name is Sally Numbskulls. She is a skeleton who is spooky and doesn't have a soft side, but makes up for it by being badass and catching on fire. She drives an 80s Crown Vic. She is the Skelecop. The Ghost Rodeo is now called Ghost Rodeo Skelecops in New York City. It is in New Orleans. That is the twist. At the end, you find out that she actually does have a soft side. Also, there is a monster. The monster's name is Goo. It is a goo monster. This was inspired by the untimely death of K-pop star Goo Hara. Prayers up. But also it is inspired by Gumby. Gumby plays John Skeleton Camp. It is a difficult sell, but Gumby is a 3-time Emmy Award winner, so he is very talented, to be honest. The movie has lots of AC/DC in the soundtrack. Acoustic Dashboard Confessional. Chris Carrabba plays himself in the movie. He is Sally Numbskull's love interest, and he sings her a special version of Vindicated that goes, Vindicated, I am spooky, I am soft, I'm on fire, there's a bull, I swear I goo it all along. She becomes soft as a result. At the end, he sings a special version of Screaming Infidelity that goes, As for now, I'm gonna sing a spooky song and sit alone and wonder how you'll make it out. Parenthetical of the Ghost Rodeo. As for me, I wish I had a skeleton with a soft side for making out. And your goo is everywhere. Spooky infidelities. 80s Crown Vic. Chris Carrabba is great. He can cry on command, which is a special thing that actors do in order to make things more sentimental. He helps the skeletons with their soft sides. Spider-Man makes a cameo. He is a good character for the Ghost Rodeo, even though he clashes with Chris Carrabba. Meanwhile, the Payne brothers are plotting revenge, but they hate Dashboard Confessional, so they don't go to the Ghost Rodeo. They instead go to the Goat Rodeo, which sounds bitchin', but is actually just Yo-Yo Ma fighting Blackout in blackface on a moving car, which also sounds bitchin', but is mostly offensive and off-putting. He kills him that way. He flips Satan's car and tells him to go back to the Ghost Rodeo. Gumby takes him away and Chris Carrabba sings a duet with Little Nicky about breaking up with a skeleton. This heals Danny, and little Nicky becomes the angel of justice. Looking back on it, after seeing the end, I couldn't remember honestly if something happened that explained why he was given his angel powers. It wasn't explained because they spent too much money on Dashboard Confessional. The rodeo ends, and Citizen Kane jumps off the Nicolas Cage onto Mankind through a press table. And then my heart stops listening to Cho-Cho San fall in love all over again with a skeleton in an 80s Crown Vic. Chris Carrabba cries on command, which is moving, and it fades to black.
Excellent story. I do like all the people that have a soft side to them.
Thank you so
I
much,
thought
Dave.
I caught all the details that you were saying. I'm sorry I didn't say much during the podcast because I was writing relentlessly.
That's okay. Like, as long as you're taking notes, it's, you're just doing your thing. You're doing what you got to do. You're at least contributing now.
Yeah,
really
like I don't
killed
want to
it.
be redundant. It's mostly just stuff you said.
It's okay.
Honestly, when it comes down to it, we just have you read the notes, so we make sure you're paying attention, and it's never been more evident that you are. So
yeah, you're paying close attention now, so that's a good thing.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys saying nice things about me.
It's okay.
yeah, I mean,
Got a little teary-eyed in here. But old Dave, he's keeping up now. He's blossomed into such a nice young man.
he's really took those firings to heart.
It's true.
Yeah, but there's a tour coming up with National Pleasure, so I probably won't care very much anymore after that. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
No, that's fine.
it's all right. You cared enough for at least 2 episodes. But so I guess now we should get down to the vote.
Oh, this is going to be a tough one.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like we definitely haven't made our feelings known about these movies.
We haven't said a damn thing.
So, can we
Dave.
get a countdown, Dr. Dave?
Nah.
Yeah, see, I guess you can care about the movies, but not the podcast.
That's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well,
I mean,
Well, they're good
Reading-
movies, and the podcast is about them.
reading all his notes has got to be more difficult than just counting down from 3. But all right.
I'm numerically dyslexic, guys, and that really hurts my feelings.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I
Just
didn't
don't
mean to be ableist.
3, 2,
2,
1. 8
8mm Spirit
Ghost
of
Rodeo.
Vengeance. Yes, 8mm
The
was
Goat Rodeo.
was the superior film.
Yo-Yo Ma and Chris Thiele. But I 8mm,
It was missing a Spirit of Vengeance.
Well,
but-
no, I kind of had that in the second.
Yeah, actually, you're
After
you're right.
what I thought would be the first ending, he just came around and was the Spirit of Vengeance.
It ends once and he becomes the Spirit of Vengeance
Yeah.
and ends a second time. So yeah, I mean, 2 endings beats 1 ending. So
It's true.
It's quantity over quality.
It's true. There we go. But yeah. Ghost Rider 2 is I don't know. It's you can live with missing that one. And
Ghost Rider 1 advanced in this tournament, and if we had 2 Ghost Rider movies floating around in the second round, it would be too confusing.
yeah,
So
and it would overpower everything. And so
I'm just not a dashboard fan, so I don't really want to go through that again.
yeah. He's it gets a little rough sometimes. I prefer my emo a little harder edged.
yeah, Dashboard Confessional reminds me too much of MTV2, which was, as Ghost Rider, inferior to its predecessor. So,
But yeah, so join us next week where we'll be talking about Wind Talkers and Outcast. 2 movies that I believe Wind Talkers is about some Navajo radio transmitters. If this is the movie that I'm thinking of, during World War II, where they hired them because both Germany and Japan were not able to decode the Navajo language because nobody there spoke it. Only Americans could speak it. And so they used them as radio transmitters because they couldn't have their stuff intercepted by the enemy. So
it's actually
Might be
about
the-
someone who whispers into their hand and throws it up in the air, and it travels across the world to somebody else who can hear it.
yeah, maybe that too. And I could be completely wrong on that, but I know there is a movie about the thing I just described, and I believe Nicolas Cage is in it. And if it's not this one, then I'll just cut whatever I said.
His Last of the Mohicans is what you're thinking of.
Yes. And Outcast is about
2 African
young
American
bucks
youths
from
from
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
the return of the gangsta. Thanks to.
They're gonna put some stank on you, and it's gonna be good.
But yeah, so join us next time for that. And until then, have a wonderful life. But not the wonderful life in the movie. It's a Wonderful Life. Don't put your head in an oven.
have an okay life.
Unless you're a skeleton.
Yeah, then do it. But yeah. Have a good one. And live as thou wilt.
Live free, die hard. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Cage fight. Oh yeah. Cage fight. Nicolas Cage.
This has been a Solid Work production.
Solid work. Solid work. Solid work. Hey, solid work.